morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us today. Welcome into Undisputed. I'm Jen Hale, here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Gentlemen, how are we today?
I'm doing wonderful.
No, you're not doing nearly as well as I am, because this is going to be a great day on Undisputed. Because Shannon Sharpe, I hold in my hands my newest addition to my Cowboy jersey collection. Can you see this? Can you see
I
this?
see that mess.
Can you see 11
Yes, I see
from heaven? He has arrived in my house. He is about to arrive this year as Defensive Player of the Year, not just Defensive Rookie of the Year, Player of the Year. And we have some great new news to talk about concerning my Dallas Cowboys, America's team forever.
That might be how many losses you guys have this year.
11? Want to bet on it?
No. I sure don't.
Skip, I imagine you have like a glass case in your house that's temperature controlled and lit perfectly for that jersey.
Yes,
All
I
right.
do.
Skip, you are going to really like this first topic, but guess what? I love it even more. Yahoo Sports simulating this upcoming NFL season using Madden, guys. And Skip's Cowboys went 12-5 in the regular season, giving them the #1 seed in the NFC. The simulation also has Dak Prescott winning MVP, thanks to 57 touchdowns and Dallas reaching the NFC Championship. But they lost to my Saints. Shannon, what percentage chance do you actually give the Cowboys of winning that #1 seed and Dak getting MVP?
Well, here's the thing: if he wins MVP, they're going to get the #1 seed. But I'm gonna give them a 1% chance of advancing to the NFC title game. I'm gonna give Dak a 0.5% chance of winning the MVP. Skip, we went back the last 5 seasons, the last 5 MVPs. They were the #1 seed, and they averaged 13 wins per season. If you go back one more season, only Matt Ryan, Skip, was the #2 seed, in which he won the MVP. So you see what they're up against. Now, I get it. Last year, they were 12-5, but I don't know if the narrative is going to be good enough, that dealing with the receiver position. He only had CeeDee Lamb. Amari left via free agency. Cedric Wilson, Amari left via trade. Cedric left via free agency. Now they got a bunch of no-name guys. Tolbert took in the 3rd round. You got Noah Brown. And so you don't have the depth or the experience outside of CD. So I don't know if that narrative is good enough to get Dak over the hump. A couple other things that I believe are working against him. Skip, although the offensive line is good, is not as dominant as it once was. Ezekiel Elliott isn't the bell cow back that he once was. And so for me, those are things. And plus, the biggest thing is Dak has been in his 6 seasons roller coaster. The one thing, when you go back and look at the last 5 MVPs, the one thing they were was consistent from start to finish. And so for me, when I look at all of these things, the inexperience and lack of depth at the wide receiver position, the offensive line is not as dominant as they once were. Zeke is not the bell cow back that he once was. Dak Prescott, roller coaster type season, Skip. I think you have your work cut out for you for all the perfect scenario in which this simulation spit out yesterday. And so for me, I just don't see that happening. But I will say this, like I said, the last 5 MVPs, 13 wins, #1 seed. If Dak wins the MVP, they're going to be the #1 seed, because he's going to, 17 games now, he's going to have to win somewhere between 13 and 14 games. And when you look at it, weeks 1 and 2, start with the Bucks, start with the Bengals. That is at home. Week 5, they come out here to LA and play the Rams. They got the Packers, at Minnesota, basically in back-to-back weeks. The Colts at home, Tennessee on the road in week 17. So I'm just looking at these out of division games, Skip. I'm not even saying anything about the in-division game, because I think they're going to probably maybe lose 1 game, and that probably will be to Philly. But I think they have their work cut out for them, so I don't see this simulation being correct.
Shannon Sharpe, you being the president of the National Cowboy Haters Club, I have an announcement for you here today on Undisputed. As you know, all through the offseason, I have tried my damnedest to restrain myself, to check myself, to govern myself, to try to keep from falling into the annual off-season or preseason trap in which I fall, thanks to my Dallas Cowboys, who always let me down. They're sort of the opposite of the mail carriers who get there through rain, sleet, or snow. My Cowboys never get there when it starts to rain, sleet, or snow. But this year, after last night, I could no longer help myself. After I read this Madden simulation, something clicked in my brain. Maybe I lost my brain. Maybe it's a no-brainer, as in I don't have a brain anymore. But it dawned upon me that I have already predicted that my Cowboys are going to go 12-5, which is, by the way, exactly what Madden simulates. They're going to go 12-5, and that 12-5 will be good enough for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Well, I'm good with that. So I'm great with the simulation, which leads me to Dak Prescott. I cannot defend the way he has fallen on his face mask down the stretch of the 2019 season when he bet on himself against Jerry Jones and lost during the season but won at the negotiating table. I can't defend the way he fell on his face mask down the stretch last year, starting with your Denver Broncos at home and, of course, Thanksgiving at home and at Kansas City and Kyler Murray at home and then San Francisco at home. It was home, not sweet, so home for me. It was a collapse. It was an embarrassment. That team set, obviously, the franchise record for a playoff game in penalties and then opened up this preseason by committing 22 penalties in the first preseason game. I can't defend any of that. But I must tell you, maybe I've let my heart run away with my head today, but I like this simulation. It rang true to me. Sometimes I just listen for that little bell to go off in the back of my psyche, and it went off last night because I'm starting to love what I see and what I feel from my Dallas Cowboys. I do believe Dak is positioned, healthy as he's ever been, going into year 7 at age 29, into the heart of his prime. I believe he's positioned to have not a good but a great year. I believe they had a pretty great year last year when they led the whole league in points. They led the whole league in yards. They tied for the lead in turnover ratio, the most telling stat in pro football. And why can't they suddenly jump aboard that and take it up to another level this year? Well,
because they're the Cowboys.
Well, what did you see Saturday night? I saw turpentine splash all over you. I saw Cavante Turpin come out of nowhere, as in the USFL, right here on Fox. The USFL MVP looked like he could be an MVP, at least of my Cowboys. All of a sudden, we have a not-so-secret weapon. All of a sudden, we have some new juice, some new voltage in an offense that I thought at the receiver position had gone from strength to weakness. But what have I predicted, prophesied throughout the offseason? CeeDee Lamb is going to have a breakout year, and maybe Cavante Turpin was exactly the little slot receiver, the little X factor that he needed. And Dalton Schultz looks sensational to me. And every time I look up that kid, Jake Ferguson, they drafted in the 4th round out of Wisconsin, he's a football player. He plays your position, tight end. I think he's going to be a big contributor because he just knows how to play. He was first team all Big Ten, and I like the feel of him. I'm starting to love what I see from their first-round pick, Tyler Smith. He is going to commit holding penalties. He is going to false start, and he is going to maul people at left guard. I think he can definitely hold down that side of the fort, if not just open big gaping holes for Ezekiel Elliott. And I told you in that new commercial featuring Kevin Hart for DraftKings, Zeke's body looks the best it's looked since he came into pro football out of Ohio State. I love his new commitment because he's on virtually a contract year. He's playing for his NFL life. And I think with Dak in the best shape of his life, having lost his baby fat, I think they are poised to have the best years that they can have at this stage of their career. I'm not saying Zeke's going to average 108 yards a game, but I do believe he could average 80 yards a game. You laughed at me yesterday when I said that because he averaged 59 last year. I can see him going for 80 a game. That's just not that much. Now, what got me, what boggled my mind in a good way was the simulations for Dak's totals are 5,649 yards. Shannon, that's 172 more than Peyton Manning had when he won the MVP. What was it, 2013 for your Broncos? That's the all-time NFL record by 172 yards. It also has Dak going from 37 touchdown passes, which was the franchise record last year, thanks to 5 in the last game against the practice squad in Philadelphia. But it's going from 37, vaulting all the way to 57. 57 touchdown passes. That will also shatter Peyton's all-time NFL record of 55 touchdown passes. That's a little hard for me to believe. The 72% is not that hard for me to believe. It would be his career high, Dax, but still, those numbers are MVP numbers.
Can I ask you a question, Skip? Has he ever completed 70% of his passes?
No.
Forget 72.
No.
Has he ever completed 70% of his passes?
No.
So in other words, they say the guy's going to jump. So you said Ezekiel Elliott is go from barely rushing for 1,000 yards, I think he had 1,008, to going to over 1,300.
Yes.
They're going to say Dak Prescott is going to go from 37 touchdowns to 57 touchdowns.
Yes.
He's going to go from about 4,500 yards. So he's going to increase his yard total by 1,200 yards. And you're okay with that. You're like, yeah, I can see that happening. Really?
It's a little bit of a stretch, but
a little.
But can I see MVP? Sure, I can. If you tell me 12-5 is the best record in the NFC, I'm great with that. And if you told me Dak had the best year of his career, would you be shocked by that? No, I wouldn't. He's poised to have the best year of his career.
Even if I give you the best year of his career, Skip, think about how many times Tom Brady threw the ball last year and what they thought he was going to get. Think about it now. He threw the ball more than anybody in NFL history, and he came up short of Peyton's record. So in other words, that means Dak is going to have to throw the ball at least 750, maybe almost 800 times, and he's going to have a completion percentage. I mean, just think about what you're saying, Skip. With CeeDee Lamb as his primary. Now, he had Godwin, he had Mike Evans, he had Gronk, he had Cameron Brake. You're going to say Dak and CeeDee are going to go get you 57 touchdowns and 5,700 yards? Skip, I don't see it. Dak has a great narrative about the thin, inexperienced the receiving core. But Patrick Mahomes also has that saying, oh, he's doing this without Tyreek. Tom Brady, oh, look at that banged-up offensive line and a new head coach. Aaron Rodgers, he lost Devontae, the best receiver in football, and he's putting up these numbers. Josh Allen, I think Josh Allen has the least of the narrative. Everybody thinks by all indications, Skip, he has the most complete football team. When you look at what they added with Von Miller, you look at Stephon Diggs, you look at Gabe Davis, you look at Dawson Knox, you look at the run game, solid offensive line. He doesn't have what some of these other MVP candidates behind him, because he's the betting favorite, has. So for me, Skip, I just don't see Dak putting up those type of numbers. That's astronomical.
Shannon, I think we're going to have to respell his first name this regular season. It's R-A-Y-N, as in Rain Dakota Prescott. And I think we're going to have to respell it R-E-I-G-N, as in he is going to reign over this league this year. I also think he will benefit from a top 5 defense. I told you that, what was it, 2-3 days ago, when maybe I told you Monday, but maybe it was Friday, I can't remember. But the point is, I love this defense. I believe Micah Parsons, I just showed you 11 from Heaven's, the jersey I just got. I believe he is going to be the defensive player of the year. I believe he has a great shot, we're going to discuss this in a few minutes, at leading this league in sacks if they will let him, if they will use him as an edge rusher way more than they do as a stand-up linebacker. I believe that Dan Quinn, as the assistant coach of the year, is going to be the unofficial head coach and driving force of this team. And I believe that all of a sudden I'm looking down at the defense, and not only did they lead the league in turnovers last year, but Shannon, I read the other day something I didn't know. They also led in that second level, maybe it's a third level stat, DVOA, which is the defensive value over average, where you grade every single play against the average play in the league. They ranked #1 on defense last year. I think with Micah as the driving force of the defense, as the spark plug, as the catalyst, as the heart and soul of the defense, I just think they're going to be really, really good and be able to live up to an offense. You mentioned some tough road games. I got you. They have to open with the GOAT, but we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. The GOAT, after Brady's break, comes back. He can't get a break now because his offensive line is decimated, and maybe this is starting to bode well for my Cowboys on opening Sunday night at Jerry World. Maybe they're in position to get a little revenge over the GOAT because maybe Tampa will not be quite ready to protect Brady the way they should be able to protect Brady. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at offense with a very possible MVP, defense top 5, 12 wins. I think that's pretty conservative. So I'm good with all of the above, and I think you are in huge trouble. Maybe my emotions are running completely away with me, but I believe you're going to be in huge trouble because you're going to get a whole lot of "how about them Cowboys" this year.
Well, here's the thing, Skip. The thing that we've seen over the last 5 winners of the MVP is consistency. We didn't see roller coaster. The only thing that we've seen from Dak in his 6 years of starting is roller coaster type of a season. So for me, Skip, I just don't see it. I understand what the simulation's saying, but I don't think they realize how many 5,700 yards is. That's over a 1,200 yard jump, a 20 touchdown jump. So basically, he's going to average an extra touchdown per game. He's going to throw on average. So if you miss a game in which you don't throw for a touchdown, you're going to need to throw for 4 or 5 to possibly get back on track. So you believe Dak Prescott is going to average a little over 3 touchdowns per game? I don't see that, Skip. I don't see that. And I get the simulation and all that, yada, yada, yada. But no, Skip. He's not that, Skip. He's not that guy. Remember, I'm just going to go back to last year. The start that Tom Brady had and the amount of time. Think about how many times Tom was throwing the football. Over 700 times. He had what? I think he had a little less than 5,000 because I think if I'm not mistaken, Skip, Justin Herbert was the only guy to go over 5,000 yards. So that means for Dak, and Tom threw the ball over 700 times, had a nice completion percentage. I think he was around 66, maybe 67%. I didn't look up the stats, but I think that's where he was. Dak, in order to get to those numbers, is going to need to be around 68, 69, maybe even 70, and throw the ball at least, at the bare minimum, 750 times. But that's also when Jerry Jones has been saying Zeke Elliott needs to be the guy again.
He does.
I don't know how those two things fit together.
Okay, so Shannon, how about instead of 57 touchdown passes, how about 47? What if he just leaps by 10? Would that qualify for MVP consideration? Could that win him the MVP at 47? Sure, it could.
That could, Skip, but we don't normally see jumps that drastic in order for these things to happen. Not that drastic. Well, I guess you could say Mahomes went from 2 or 3 touchdowns all the way to 50. So stranger things have happened, but there's a 1-game start versus a 16-game start. But Skip, look, I get it. I just don't see with the receivers. Hell, who's going to be catching all these touchdowns? So if he throws for 57, that means CeeDee Lamb's going to have at least 30 receiving touchdowns. Because who else the hell are you going to throw the ball to? Noah Brown?
I just listed Dalton Schultz, Tony Pollard, Kevontae Turpin. All these guys are big weapons for Dak Prescott. And I keep telling you, you keep laughing at me about CeeDee Lamb. He's going to play that lamb like a lion this year. This is going to be his breakout. He doesn't have to worry about Dak's rapport, having better connection with Amari Cooper. All of a sudden, it's going to be CD, you can say, or bust at the wide receiver position. But I believe he will rise and shine just the way he did for Jalen Hurts in their year together at Oklahoma, when CeeDee Lamb dominated college football and had the largest yards per catch in the nation. And I believe by the end of the year, you're going to be talking about CeeDee Lamb as a top 10 receiver. I believe he'll be a top 5 receiver by the end of the year. And you keep scoffing and ridiculing, and you're going to have a long, hard year, my friend.
Skip, if I'm not mistaken, the year that Peyton went for 55, he had at least 4 guys. I think Eric Decker, I think, if I'm not mistaken, rest his soul, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, and Julius Thomas all had at least 10 receiving touchdowns. I think No Sean Moreno also had 10, but it was rushing and receiving. If I'm not mistaken, I think they had 5 guys, and that was a historic season. Over 5,400 passing yards, 55 touchdowns in 16 games. We know how much he threw the ball. They produced the greatest scoring season in NFL history, over 600 points. You believe that Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys are going to score over 600. So if he throws for 57, Peyton had 55. That means, and I think they had 606. That means he's going to be somewhere between 620 and possibly 640 points in an NFL. Let's stop it. Skip, stop. If you sit down and really thought about what you had actually said, you're like, man, I am so sorry, Shannon, that I actually said that on live TV.
I'm not sorry at all. My team led the league last year in points and yards. Can you get that through your thick head? I mean,
yes.
What's not to love about that? Why do you discount it?
Okay,
because they fell apart at the end of the year. They still did that. They set the foundation for this last year.
But those numbers aren't transferable. You don't get to just bring those numbers and pick right up where you left off. You have to start all over again. You don't get to stop. You get to start where you stopped. So guess what? You back down in the ravine and you have to scale back up the mountain.
Okay, well, we're going to scale all the way, according to the Madden simulation, to our first NFC Championship game in 27 years. And Jen is gloating about, yeah, but the Saints beat you and the Saints go on in the simulation to win the Super Bowl. Great. I don't care. I will take NFC Championship game and I will celebrate it like it's the Super Bowl, because it's been 27 long years since I even experienced that.
How about this here? How about take the little division title and scram? That's what you do. Take your little division title, which you're gonna win this year, and skedaddle. That's as far as this Uber is taking you. Okay?
No, we're gonna scram right over your head is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make you sweat and make you fear us all year long, because we're gonna get better and better. And Dak, as in Rain Dakota Prescott, R-E-I-G-N, is going to finish this year strongly.
57 touchdowns, 5,700 passing yards.
Yes, we have a deal.
I will pull for your Cowboys to make
you.
it to the NFC Championship if you will pull for my Saints to win the Super Bowl. I will sign on to that all day.
I will do that. Deal.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.